Commons for now with the Health Secretary Sajid Javid answering questions about the Omicron coronavirus variant. The UK now has 11 confirmed cases of that new variant Omicron, with 5 in England and 6 in Scotland. As efforts increase to combat the spread of the virus, the government has just announced changes to the UK's vaccination programme. All people aged 18 to 39 will now be offered a booster vaccine. Those aged over 40 are already eligible for that jab. Well, the gap between the second dose and the booster will be reduced to 3 months, down from 6 months, which it is currently. Young people aged 12 to 15 will be offered a second dose of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine no sooner than 12 weeks after their first dose. And severely immunosuppressed people should be offered a 4th dose no sooner than 3 months after completing their primary course of 3 doses. It's not yet clear how effective vaccines will be against the new Omicron variant, but scientists think they will still protect against severe disease. From tomorrow, the wearing of face masks is set to be compulsory in shops and on public transport, while PCR tests will be brought back in for travellers returning to the UK. Well, in a Downing Street press conference in the past hour, England's Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Jonathan Malcolm, said there were many things that we don't yet know about Omicron, but that it was the number of mutations of the variant which made it worrying.
It's always been the case that at some point, we've always said it, we are going to get a variant that gives us heightened concern. We are at that moment with Omicron. It is the new kid on the block for now, and I think it's true to say that scientists around the world, not just in the UK, unfortunately agree that this one is of increased concern.
Professor Rachel Lim, chair of the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation, said the booster vaccine improves the body's immune response to COVID, giving it a step up from the first 2 doses. Hopefully that will help to mitigate any differences or mutations of the Omicron variant.
Viruses that develop variants and that are different compared to the wild-type original virus increase the likelihood of a mismatch between the vaccine on the one hand and the variant on the other. The larger the mismatch between vaccine and variant, the greater the likelihood that the level of protection provided by the vaccine will be lowered. One way of reducing the impact of this mismatch between vaccine and variant is to increase the strength of the immune response provided by the current vaccine. In other words, if we can raise the level of the immune response generated by the vaccine, that higher level of immune response will reach out and provide extra protection to mismatch variants.
Well, the Health Secretary Sajid Javid, who's been speaking in the House of Commons in the past week.
We're learning more about this new variant all the time, but the latest indication is that it spreads very rapidly. It may impact the effectiveness of one of our major treatments for COVID-19, Ronapreve. And as the Chief Medical Officer said this weekend, there's a reasonable chance that our current vaccines may be impacted. I can update the House that there are 5 confirmed cases in England and also 6 confirmed cases in Scotland, and we expect cases to rise over the coming days. The new variant has also been spreading across the world. Confirmed cases have including Austria, Belgium, the Czech Republic, Denmark, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and Portugal. In this race between the vaccine and the virus, the new variant may have given the virus extra legs.
Sajid Javid speaking a short time ago in the House of Commons, with our health correspondent Nick Triggle has been listening to all of that and is here now. Just what's been announced and why now?
Well, indeed, it's a significant change to the booster programme. As we've been hearing, there's a concern that this new variant may have the ability to evade some of those initial defences built up by the vaccination programme. And boosters then are considered very important because they significantly increase the immune response and counter some of that ability. If it proves to be the case, and it's far from proven yet, that the
40s. The minimum gap between the second dose and the booster is to be shortened from 6 months to 3 months, and 12 to 15-year-olds are to be offered a second dose 3 months after their first dose. Currently, they were only being offered one dose so far. So that brings them in line with the 16 to 17-year-olds. And the immunosuppressed will be offered a fourth dose to try and boost their immune response. Obviously, the concern is that this new variant may trigger a new wave in infections.
So we need to get the detail of how this increased booster program is going to work. But how can the NHS cope with it? They're already trying to deliver millions of doses in the next few weeks anyway.
They are. I mean, these booster doses, they're only people's arms, and so the NHS is being told to increase the rate at which it's giving boosters. Now, at the moment, they've been doing around 2.5 million boosters a week on average. Now, at that rate, it would take about 3 months to vaccinate, to boost all those who are eligible. So they're looking, and they're meeting this afternoon, our NHS bosses, to work out and find out how they can speed down time. One of the problems is that some of the mass vaccination clinics the UK used early on in the vaccination programme have now closed. I think about 50 mass vaccination centres closed. Some of the GPs who were offering jabs have had to be sort of pulled back to do the flu jabs and to do their day-to-day work. So the thing they're looking at in particular is extending the opening hours of the current vaccination centres into the evening, late at night. Liberties and some people perhaps have run vaccinations not through the night, although when they tried that previously there wasn't huge uptake. So I think we'll hear, if not this evening, tomorrow at some point, about how the NHS is going to deliver this.
Thank you very much, Nick Triggle. In about 15 minutes' time, we'll be putting questions from our viewers about the Omicron variant to the experts. Join us for your questions answered with health correspondent Laura Foster and consultant virologist Dr. Chris Smith just after 4:30 here on BBC News. As we've been hearing, 6 cases of the Omicron coronavirus variant have now been identified in Scotland. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon said she's expecting there to be more cases, and she stressed that everyone needs to continue taking precautions.
Firstly, get vaccinated. It is the single most important thing we can do to protect ourselves and each other. Secondly, test for COVID regularly. As I said, we will be increasing testing in areas where the new variant has been identified. But for all of us, wherever we are, even if we're feeling fine, regular lateral flow testing is a really important way of finding out if we might have the virus.
Let's speak to our correspondent in Scotland, Nick Eardley, and a disproportionate number of the cases so far in Scotland.
Yeah, they are massive. There were 6 cases were confirmed this morning, 4 of them in the Strathclyde area, a couple of them in Glasgow and Greater Clyde. One of the things that's worrying some here in the Scottish Government area is that a couple of the cases are linked to people who haven't travelled abroad, don't have any contact with Southern Africa, so it seems that community transmission in Scotland is underway. I mean, as you've been covering all afternoon, there are big unanswered questions about the impact of the new variant, about whether it makes people more ill, whether it can evade the vaccine. But certainly the message from Nicola Sturgeon in that briefing this morning and in her SNP conference address, which is this afternoon as well, was about caution and about following the rules that are in place here already and have been in place for some time about wearing face coverings and working from home where possible, really urging people to keep going with that. And we have had it confirmed, by the way, in the last 45 minutes that the Scottish Government will accept that advice from the JCVI on boosters as you would expect. They are drawing up plans at the moment, so we don't have it confirmed exactly when people under 40 will start to get their boosters in Scotland, but that's certainly something that is going to be underway pretty soon.
Just been talking, Nick, we've had it confirmed that the government has rejected Nicola Sturgeon's call for there to be second PCR tests. So once again, we're seeing a difference of opinion in the approach to this new variant as we've seen sometimes in the past.
Yeah, so this was a letter that Nicola Sturgeon and the Welsh First Minister Mark Drakeford wrote to Boris Johnson this morning. Their concern is basically that the rules we had introduced over the weekend, that you have to self-isolate and get a PCR test on day 2 after arriving in the UK, they're basically slightly worried that that doesn't go far enough because they don't know how long this new variant might incubate for, whether a positive case would definitely show up on day 2. So Nicola Sturgeon and Mark Drakeford were calling for a day 8 test as well, which would mean people have to self-isolate for at least 8 days after arriving in the UK. As you say though, Downing Street are not on board with that at all, so it doesn't look like it's going to happen. There's certainly some concern in the travel industry about the impact that would have, and at the moment the argument Downing Street's making is that it's not proportionate to the risk of the new variant. As I say, slightly different views in England and Cardiff.
Nick, this is all overshadowing the SNP conference that's taking place.
The reason I'm here as well as a political correspondent to cover that. Nicola Sturgeon gave her address to the virtual SNP conference this afternoon. A lot of it was rewritten to cover what's going on with the new variant and those warnings about caution. So a couple of other things that are worth flagging up though, because they are really important. The Scottish Child goes to about 100,000 people under the age of 6 at the moment. That's going to be doubled for April. It's a benefit to the Scottish Government to support families, and it's going to go up to £20 a week from April. That's something that we promised election last year and working quite rapidly. That's going to imply this afternoon. Another thing, a question that we always talk about after an SNP conference is what is going on with Scottish independence. The SNP argue they have a really strong mandate for another referendum after they won the election back in May. Nicola Sturgeon said this afternoon that she was going to initiate the process to allow another referendum in 2023. So basically that means she's going to take forward some of the parliamentary manoeuvres that in theory could allow another referendum at the end of 2023. Got to say, that's a lot easier said than done. We're still not sure how Nicola Sturgeon intends to deliver it, because the UK government continues to say we're not going to agree to one. It's quite possible that the Scottish Parliament will pass legislation anyway. That will end up in the Supreme Court with a legal battle. So Nicola Sturgeon is still talking about that referendum in 2023. I've got to say though, it's not far from certain that it's going to happen, and there are a lot of people even within Nicola Sturgeon's party who are unconvinced that that is likely.
Next moment, thank you very much, Nick Handy in Glasgow. Well, from tomorrow, face coverings will become mandatory again in England in retail outlets, but hospitality settings will be exempt from the changes. Let's get reaction to this and talk to Doug Russell, Health and Safety Officer for Hospital, the union which represents shop, distributor and allied workers. Thank you very much for joining us. What's your view of the reintroduction of these measures?
We think it's essential that they're reintroduced. We think it was wrong in the first place to get rid of the regulations requiring the lead buses in shops in England as they did in July. The reason is that it's one of the most important ways of making sure that you can provide protection to other people in that situation. You may not know that you're infected, and you may not know that you are at risk of passing on the infection to others, but if you're wearing a face covering, that goes a long way to actually stopping it from spreading it around.
How hard is it, though, to put back into place something that people had thought they'd had to give up?
That's going to be the problem, isn't it? We say people are strongly bringing it back into the more difficult, particularly when the government itself was not led by example. I mean, they left it as a suggestion that it was a good idea to wear face coverings in those sorts of situations, but left it as a matter of individual choice. And then TV demonstrated that their own individual choice very often was not to wear face coverings. And that's left a very unpleasant situation, because it does mean that when staff in regional doctors start trying to remind people again that they should not be wearing face coverings, it's going to lead to more frictions and more room for argument and more violence, unfortunately, against them.
What sort of conditions and attitudes are your members having to work under?
Well, as we said, the vast majority of the public, when it was required to wear face coverings, were very good about it, and still are in Scotland and Wales, where the regulations were never clear. But there is definitely a minority of people who seem to think that the rule shouldn't apply to them, and they are causing problems in stores. We've seen the levels of violence that shop workers face more than double here, and it's very often issues around reminding people of the rules they have to follow to protect themselves and to protect other customers.
How then are your members meant to enforce these rules?
Well, they can enforce it, that's the point. They don't have any enforcement powers in this situation. The best thing they can do is remind them and that they will do it. The trouble is that to be a trigger for them to become at least verbally abusive, and in some cases even physically violent. We've seen 1 in 10 shop workers physically assaulted in the last 12 months because of trying to remind people of the fact that they need to take precautions.
How quick are the police going to respond when your members have faced assault?
It's been patchy. Where there's been a serious physical assault, usually the response is quite good. But the levels of verbal abuse is 90% of shop workers verbally abused in the last 12 months as a result of the pandemic. It was a daily occurrence in some stores, and that's more difficult because it's very difficult for the police to respond to that. What's even more disturbing is that when we talk to shop workers about it in a recent survey, nearly half of them said they wouldn't bother to report anymore because they don't think they make any difference. So it's almost as if they've given up on the system to look after them.
Doug Russell from the Union Oslo. Common Standards Committee is calling for MPs to be banned from providing paid parliamentary advice. Its report follows recent concerns about lobbying and second jobs. The committee also suggests that MPs should be investigated for excessive personal attacks via any medium. And it's been a busy morning at Westminster. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, is carrying out a reshuffle of his front bench team. Our political correspondent Chris Mason joins us now. We'll come to the reshuffle in a minute because I know you've been away making calls, having chats. Tell us about this report though first into Sleaze, because it's part of a much longer project than just connected to the incidents we've seen of late.
Yeah, that's right, Martin. When I woke up this morning, I thought I would be talking about MP standards because that's what Labour's Deputy Leader Angela Rayner was talking about this morning. And then at 2 o'clock, we got this report from Chris Bryatt's committee, the Standards Committee of MPs. This is a report, a piece of work about the rules that govern MPs' behaviour that's been underway for the best part of a year. It's been refreshed and revisited in the light of recent headlines involving the former Cabinet Minister Owen Paterson and the Sleaze allegations that have been flying around at Westminster, but it does predate the headlines of the last few weeks. As you mentioned there, a few of the suggestions coming out from the committee as far as changes that might happen. They're not going to happen straight away. It'll be at least Easter, I think, by the time this package of measures is looked at, consulted on, and then presented to Parliament to decide what it wants to do. Here there is Mr. Bryant talking to me in the last hour about what his committee is setting out.
The most important thing is that we want to tighten up the rules on conflict of interest. It's always been wrong for MPs to engage in what's called paid lobbying. That's what Owen Paterson was found guilty of. But we now want to make it even clearer that no MP can take any job which involves any kind of political or parliamentary advice, strategising or consultancy. And on top of that, we want to make sure that every MP who does have any kind of outside interest has a contract. Owen Paterson didn't have a contract, and that contract must specify things that they are doing and things that they are banned from doing, including any kind of advising people on how to get their way around the parliamentary or the political system.
So that's the plan then, Martin, as far as trying to change the rules here is concerned. There's real awareness from so many MPs that the rows of the last couple of weeks leave the impression, play into the stereotype, if you like, of MPs bluntly having their snouts in the trough. And it really, really, really irritates so many MPs who were brought into this game at Westminster for noble reasons to try and make the world a better place by whichever means and outlooks and visions of the world that they have. And they see these cases looking like they personify everyone here, and in many cases are keen to see rules that are that bit tighter, even if in some instances there'll be some MPs who might be aggrieved that some work they've been able to do on the side up to now may not be possible in the future.
Chris, thank you very much. Let's talk about the reshuffle then, shall we? What's changed on the front bench? I mean, again, there's so much going on with COVID. It's not really got much to look in today, has it?
It hasn't, not least because it hasn't really happened yet as far as proper announcements are concerned about significant moves. We know of one or two. So Cat Smith has decided to stand down from the Shadow Cabinet. We know that there's been a switch as far as the Shadow Wealth Secretary is concerned and Shadow Culture, but we haven't got news yet as far as the big gigs are concerned, potentially a new Shadow Home Secretary, for instance. But what we have had is a transparent, a very direct insight into tensions between Keir Starmer, the Labour leader, and Angela Rayner, the directly elected by the membership deputy leader. That's one post that Keir Starmer does not have direct control over. I was at the speech on standards that Angela Rayner was giving this we got wind that this reshuffle was happening. And when we put questions to her afterwards, she said she didn't know the details of it, she didn't know the timing of it. It later emerged that she had spoken to Sir Keir Starmer this morning, having done a round of interviews on breakfast programmes this morning, denying any knowledge of an imminent reshuffle. So there is no doubt, there is tension, there is anger, there is irritation within the Deputy Leader's office towards the Leader, and within the Leader's office towards the Deputy. That much has been confirmed. We knew of it already dating back to the last reshuffle. That much has been confirmed today already. And as I say, we still don't know the main beef, if you like, of what this reshuffle is going to add up to.
Thank you. We'll wait to hear later. Thank you. 4 teenagers have been jailed for life for killing the 15-year-old schoolboy Keon Lincoln in Birmingham in January. The four aged between 14 and 18 have been given minimum terms of 16 to 19 years. And Godfrey reports.
It was a barbaric and senseless attack. Keon Lincoln was stabbed from behind and shot just meters from home. The gunfire was heard by his own mother, Charmaine.
And my first instinct was, where's my son? I was the first where's my son? Where's my son? How am I supposed to figure out what's happened and the reasons why?
It wasn't established in court whether Keon's life was taken during a gang dispute, but CCTV pointed to a premeditated and brazen attack on the schoolboy in the middle of the afternoon. A group all under 18 hunting down a victim.
And I think the fact that you've got youngsters at that age going around using firearms, it's an absolute terrible state of affairs.
Tajid Breckenridge and Michael Gichokwo were convicted of murder, jailed for life with a minimum of 19 years. Today in court, the judge lifted reporting restrictions to allow the naming of the gunman. He was 14-year-old Yusuf Mustafa. He'll serve at least 16 years. Another 16-year-old boy who can't be named received 17 years, while 18-year-old Kieran Donaldson, who supplied weapons, received a 12-year jail term.
I can only hope that the convictions have some form of solace for Keon's family, but put that message out there amongst the community that we will investigate these matters and we will find those who are responsible and we will convict them.
The motive for the attack is still not clear, and the chaos of that January afternoon has only brought sadness, reflection, and more confusion to Keon's family and friends.
Crime that was committed on Keon is absurd things. And we just really want to sort of put an end to this. I don't want this to be one of those springboards that we can use that can start bringing some questions to our community.
The gunman, Yusuf Mustafa, lied about his whereabouts that day, claiming he'd been on an online school lesson during lockdown. Keon's killers covered their faces in hoods. They felt untouchable as they inflicted 8 knife wounds inside 30 seconds. Keon had an unbelievable laugh, his mother said. He was a loving child with a jolly spirit. Ben Godfrey, BBC News.
Have a look at the weather forecast now. Louise has joined us. Hello.
Hello, Martin. Good